What's up, otakuans? Welcome back to another episode of the Otaku Octagon's Manga Corner. This week, we're actually going to take a short two-part pause of our Rising of the Shield Hero volume review to review one of One Piece's side story novels, Ace's story. Today, we're going to review part 1. The next episode, we will cover the second part. Ace's story is a One Piece novel created by Eiichiro Oda, but written by Sho Hinata that focuses on Ace from the moment he finds the Mera no Mi, or the Flame fruit, up until he eventually joins Yonko of the Sea, Whitebeard's crew. Without wasting too much time, let's hop into Ace's story, part 1. Chapter 1. Starting out, we soon realize that the story that is being narrated is not by some unknown author, not even by Ace himself, but of a young man who has found himself stranded on a deserted island. Since a young child, he has always been infatuated with the grand tales of mystery and adventure. Reading allowed him to escape from the harshness of his realities, and even though many laughed at these stories in his wild imagination, he promised himself that he would never doubt it until he sees it for himself. That passion and drive ultimately led him to the situation he was in now, and leading him to meet Ace. Ace, like himself, was also stranded on this island, and though his mood hadn't shown it, longer than even him. After just 3 days, he had no water and no food and no hope of survival. Ace, on the other hand, though in the same situation, still seemed full of hope. When the two met, Ace introduces himself and, against the wishes of our narrator, nicknames him Deuce. Ace is still hopeful because he has yet given up the thought of escaping the island. Every day he continuously works to build a boat and attempt to escape the island, but to no avail. Not interested, Deuce gasps him off and moves to another part of the small island to focus on his own survival. It wasn't as if he had no interest in escaping, it's because in this situation, it's just very hard to trust anyone else. Who's to say that Ace is even a good guy? From time to time, he sees Ace continue his pursuit of freedom, only to be met by the waves of crushing defeat brought back to shore once more. How was it possible that this man had so much energy to continuously plow forward, even when failure was almost certain? One day after one of those notable defeats, once Ace had returned to the shore, Deuce decides to just watch him, probably because he was just too tired to move on as he normally would. But this time, lo and behold, he sees Ace is holding something large and circle, a fruit. Though odd looking, it certainly seemed tasty. Remembering back to their first meet, he recalls Ace mentioning who his father was, and with that info, he convinces himself that the child of a criminal deserves not to eat, let alone live, when him, an innocent man, should starve. Grabbing the first thing he could call a weapon, he sneaks up on Ace, but Ace immediately notices him and is still as full of energy and oddly kind since the first day they met. Awkwardly hiding the stick, he is absolutely surprised when Ace offers to give him half of the fruit. And honestly, there's no way Ace didn't notice the weapon, but yet this kind man shares with him the key to just surviving another day. He accepts his generosity and Ace takes the first bite of his half, and the rest is history. Taking a quick pause, let's quickly go over some key details about devil fruits. Devil fruits are said to be gifts from the devil, and if one were to ever eat one, they would receive great powers, but at the cost of being forever cursed by the sea, with the inability to swim or even stand in a large body of water. Secondly, each fruit will only give its power to one individual, and that will be the individual who eats it first. After that first bite, it's just another disgusting fruit that offers no other benefits outside of a meal. Lastly, a devil fruit user should only be capable of eating one devil fruit. It is said that if you were to try to eat another, you would die. At least that's what they say. Going back to the beach, it didn't take more than a couple moments to realize that the fruit they had just ate is one of those legendary devil fruits. Ace starts to immediately tap into his flame powers, and the two are simply amazed. Of course, Deuce had read many stories about these fruits, so he wasn't too surprised, but it was still amazing. Ace, on the other hand, explains that he has a little brother that had also eaten a devil fruit that gave his body rubbery properties. At this moment, Deuce takes note that every time Ace talks about his little brother, it's the happiest that he's ever seen him. With the energy of their new discovery finally settling down, a harsh reality now settles on Ace. Now that he's a devil fruit user, he no longer has the ability to swim. So that means the next time his boat fails him will be the last time. But Deuce is suddenly stricken with brilliance. This new ability would not hold them back, but literally propel them forward. Finally working together, the two train Ace's proficiency with his fruit, while also using its properties to properly boil water, prepare small delicacies with what they found on the island, and build a boat with properly treated wood that would bring them to freedom. At last, the day has come to where the two are sailing away from the island, not by air power or manpower, but using the propulsion of Ace's flames to skirt across the waves safely. Here we see for the first time Ace's first ship, the one that we saw in the anime when Ace went to go visit Luffy in Alabasta, Striker, and the start of the infamous Spade Pirates. Chapter 2. Some time has passed since the two escaped the deserted island, and the Spade Pirates, along with their captain, Fire Fist Ace, have definitely made a name for themselves. Though the crew hadn't yet reached the Grand Line, Ace's bounty seemed to dwarf other members of his generation, even of those that, in his opinion, have committed even more heinous crimes. Deuce does think upon what is the driving force behind Ace's skyrocketing bounty, though he suspects it's because who his father was. The next chapter rejoins the crew in the midst of conflict where a bounty hunter ship, pretending to be stranded, had used his opportunity to board and attack the Spade Pirates. During this battle, we meet a few more members of the crew, starting with Mihal or Teach. Though this is not many of our first time hearing Teach before, this individual has no relation but instead has received the nickname from back when he was a school teacher. Now a pirate, he seems to be the sniper of the crew, capable of firing off well-aimed shots from a location unbeknownst to the enemy or even his own crew. The next is Skull. Like Mihal, he wasn't what you would call a conventional pirate, but more of a collector. Before joining the crew, he would join different pirate ships for short stints, and when they reached their next port, they had found they had been pilfered. Anything piratey, Skull enjoyed to collect it. But now that he was on the crew, while still a collector, he is now known as Skull the Info Agent due to all the knowledge and insight that he has gathered over his life. Even his face, hidden behind a skull mask, was important need-to-know info that he will only divulge at a certain price. No one has yet paid it though. The last member that we were introduced to is actually not even a human, but a sphinx that Ace had saved from poachers a while back. Though no crazy powers, he looked very menacingly and had the energy to match. After handily dealing with the bounty hunters, Ace shows them why he's known as Fire Fist Ace, and now they are quickly disappearing into the horizon, and the crew is left with a moment of relief. This moment does not last long. From the same area the bounty hunters were fleeing, the crew soon notices a fleet of ships making its way in their direction. Not much time or energy was needed to realize these ships were Navy vessels. Preparing to leave, they are soon met with the presence of a naval officer nicknamed the Nailer. After brief conversation, the Nailer and Ace were soon fighting, but to be clear, Ace was merely avoiding while the Nailer tried her best to get ahead. See, the Nailer's objective was simply to allow the rest of her fleet to maneuver around the Spade Pirate ship so that they couldn't escape. What they hadn't expected was for Deuce to have already made a contingency plan to escape by using the jutted rocks in the water of a nearby island to slow those ships, and they did just that. Soon, one of the naval battleships were sinking right before their eyes, and the naval officer immediately rushes to save them, promising Ace she will return. This impresses Ace and Deuce, knowing not many naval officers will prioritize the lives of their men over the mission and their own life. Clearly being overpowered by the crashing waves and jutted rocks, Ace decides to throw a flotation ring so that she wouldn't drown. The crew leaves and resumes their celebrations of their recent victories. Chapter 3. The final chapter of the first part of this story again skips some time, and we are now halfway through the Grand Line without any indication of slowing down. So far, the crew has about 20 members and one animal, and Ace's bounty is still continually rising higher and higher. Currently, their log post was pointing down, and the next island on their voyage was to be Fishman Island. Skull then informs the crew in order to keep pushing forward, they will need to visit Sawari Archipelago so they can have their ship coated before diving deep into those. Thankfully, he's already made the necessary plans and has indicated where they will need to go on the map of Sawari. Since Sawari was not technically an island, visiting here first would not mess up the current log post, since it was just technically a collection of giant trees called Yarukimen mangroves. The landmass at the base of these trees are just settling on the tree's roots, and the roots is where the resin necessary for the coating comes from. Being these landmasses are not islands, they would not need to worry about their log being overwritten by the island's magnetic signal. On arrival, the crew navigates into a hidden part of the mangroves so that the passing naval ships will not notice, when they literally run into the same naval officer, the Nailer, or Hasuka. For some weird reason, she was standing there, on this private area, in her civilian clothes, and no other Marines, claiming that she was still hunting him, but everyone could clearly tell she was simply on vacation. While she yells below for Ace to turn himself in below the ship, Ace takes this opportunity to slip out the other side, but since he had also forgot his wallet, Deuce follows. While they are there to coat their ship and prepare for the next leg of their journey, Ace is there to eat. Once Deuce catches up to him, the two decide to ride the Ferris wheel at Sabaody Park, but again run into Asuka while in line. Hilariously, the three are forced into the same buggy and are soon elevating to the top of the wheel. As you can imagine, the tension in this buggy was so thick you can cut it with a knife, but yet Ace couldn't care less and stares happily out the window. Asuka, finally working up the courage to speak, asks Ace whether he is willing to give up being a pirate. If he needs somewhere to go, he could just join the Navy with her and she will be sure to put in a good word for him and his men. As they reach the top, Ace finally responds, declining the offer, and hops out the Ferris wheel and jumps from buggy to buggy with his fire prowess as if he was simply walking down a flight of stairs. Defeated, Asuka tells Deuce that they are free to go for today, and they part ways. On the final day of coding, Ace and Deuce are again walking the streets while Ace enjoys all the food stalls until they find themselves in the slums of the island. No tourists, no laughter, just broken buildings and starving civilians. Ace, being the Chad that he is, shares all of his food with the starving children in their vicinity, which as always impresses and reminds Deuce why he is such a great captain and also a great man. The next moment, Asuka and another naval officer appears, but seemingly with peace. She claims they only have come to talk, and she introduces them to Vice Admiral Doro, the man who saved her as a child when pirates attacked and pilfered her town, burning everything and leaving her an orphan. Introduced, the Vice Admiral offers Ace a seat at the warlord's table, granting him amnesty for his past crimes, forgiveness for his current bounty, and a position as an official pirate for the world government. Ace politely declines, and that's when peace ends and the action begins. Doro admits that he's happy he's declined it because, just like Ace, he despises the warlord system, but in his opinion, the only good pirate is a dead one. Vice Admiral Doro then removes his jacket, showing off some sort of metal contraption hooked up to tubes and what seemingly seems to be a full fuel tank. Ace is soon met with a torrent of flame seemingly even more powerful than his own, keeping him at bay. Not caring who's injured in the process, Doro unleashes the full velocity of these device-created flames and endangers the property and lives of the civilians in the area. Of course, Izuka tries to stop him, but soon realizes the real one responsible for the deaths of her family is Doro himself. From his perspective, killing pirates by all means necessary is the only important thing. You can't make eggs without cracking a few shells, right? Deuce tries to tackle Doro, but fails, but takes his opportunity to disconnect the tubes to his fuel source. This gives Ace the opportunity to bring this fight close combat, where it seems he actually shines best. Here's where we first hear about Haki, a seemingly new concept to Deuce, but a natural power meant to combat Devil Fruit users. First, Doro uses it to try to crush Ace's neck in his bare hands, but soon Ace uses it to trade fists with Doro, overpowering him, leaving him as an unconscious lump on the ground. With everything that has finally come out, Ace offers Asuka to join his crew, not as a pirate, but as a bounty hunter. The now three rush off to try to meet the ship, and when they find it, it also seems that the Navy has began creating a blockade around Sabaody in order to stop the Spade Pirates. Asuka stays behind, reaffirming herself as a naval ensign, but also asking for Ace not to die in his adventures. Begrudgingly, the crew depart, escaping the blockade and diving deep into the dark blue, showing us one last glimpse of Ace's dismay at the thought he truly couldn't be loved. It seems that everything that gets too close ends up burned in the end. And here, the novel ends. Next stop, Fishman Island. And that is where Volume 1 ends. Damn, in just 3 chapters we have dived deep into Ace's discovery of his fruit, formation of his crew, and we got to see the moment when he was offered the position of a warlord of the sea. This short story is definitely one I would love to see animated one day, but until then, I do want to mention that these novels very recently have received manga adaptations in English, illustrated by Boytree, also known for Dr. Stone. Part 1 of the manga is already available wherever you do shop for your books and manga, while Part 2 will be releasing this summer. But you won't have to wait that long until Part 2 of this review releases. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, peace.